Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and a few people have asked me why is it that I'm choosing to do a push-pull instead of an upper-lower, because I've written some upper-lower splits, my intermediate program's an upper-lower split. Why am I choosing to do a push-pull instead of an upper-lower now that I've gone to 4-day-a-week training instead of full body 3 times a week? Pretty straightforward, it's just personal preference. It is personal preference. And I'll explain why in a minute. But ultimately, when you start splitting your training up, people need to understand split training of any type. And I want people to note I am not promoting what people are thinking of as a normal training split of like the whole bodybuilding body part thing. I'm not promoting that. I have always said movement pattern splits are acceptable. I've actually said upper lowers are pretty much acceptable. Those are the way to go if you're going to split things up. Right? That's the way to go. This is essentially a movement pattern based split. And what people need to understand, what I'm doing is pretty much full body still, isn't it? In a way. Other than I'm not doing all my lifts every day. Right? I'm not doing all my lifts every day. But take my workout B as a perfect example. Pull-ups, deadlift, hip thrust, cheat curls. I might even eventually throw face pulls or something in. Those are full body exercises. Everything get worked. Yeah. People say, what do you mean? No, that's just back and biceps and hamstrings. No. Quads are getting worked. Triceps and chest are getting some work. The entire core is getting work. The delts are getting work. It's a full body day. It might not be pressing dominant, but it's full body. You know, we could argue that my other day, my pressing days, is full body other than maybe not really any bicep in it. But it's still full body. Even the lats are getting worked. Hamstrings are getting worked. Glutes are getting worked. And pretty much every exercise I do trains the core, doesn't it? When you go look at the EMG data, every exercise I do is working the core, including even my cheat curls. All right? Cheat curls light your abs and your erectors up. So it's still more or less full body, but it's a movement pattern based split. And I've always said that if you're going to split things up, I lean in the direction of doing things in a movement pattern. Why? Because I'm an athlete. I promote athleticism. I don't promote thinking of the body in terms of body parts. You guys remember when I interviewed Coach CJ Allen years ago, who was working on his biomechanics degree or his graduate degree in it, who was himself, he coached bodybuilders, was himself a competitive power lifter, had actually been at a certain point a scholarship basketball player who bulked up and got massive and into powerlifting later. You know what he said, where in his opinion, where bodybuilders make the mistake is at thinking of the body as a block of Legos instead of the body. Said he felt that holds him back. And he wasn't anti-anabolic, by the way. He was very pro-gear. But even he said that that held bodybuilders back in his opinion, because the human body is not a set of Legos. You can't isolate muscles. Muscles don't train in isolation. They don't train effectively in isolation. You cannot progress on isolation movements for the most part for any significant period of time without making it multi-joint or without doing a multi-joint exercise to make the muscle stronger. And when you think of the body in those terms, it will limit your progress. It will limit your progressive overload, and it will limit the amount of size that you can gain. And I'm not saying never to do curls. But when you think of the body in terms of those body parts, it limits you. And it will make you do terrible exercises. It will make you pick the least effective exercises. And that wastes time. I'm not even against volumes of training, but if you're going to do any sort of higher volume training, I believe you need to be doing the most effective exercises. That's where you get your total training volume, right? I mean, if you really want to put an enormous amount of volume on your triceps, do as many sets of dips, overhead press, and weighted pull-ups as you can recover from in a single week. You could be doing up to 30 sets for your triceps. Just actually, technically, that's what I'm doing, right? Without ever thinking of it as a body part, because it's not necessary. And that's my problem that I get to when I start thinking upper, lower. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's that it puts you in a mentality sometimes that says, hey, this is my upper body day. It's my upper body day. You're thinking of half of your body. So maybe I need to be careful of lower body exercise. Maybe I shouldn't do a standing press. Maybe I shouldn't do a push press, right? But maybe a push press is the exercise that you need to be doing for your goals. And that's where things like that will mess you up. How about a power clean? Where do you place that in an upper lower split? Well, you can technically place it wherever you want because your body doesn't care about the split. You're doing the split for organization reasons, right? That's why we do splits. We do it for psychological organization reasons so that we can stack more total volume in for the week and then organize it in some way that we find satisfying. Well, again, you start getting into that mindset, it will make you sometimes not do the most effective exercises. Because then all of a sudden you start thinking, well, no, maybe I shouldn't do that exercise because I've got to squat tomorrow and I don't want to fatigue myself doing that push press. But maybe the push press is a lift that you need to be doing. And instead, do a strict press. Well, then you say, well, maybe the strict press is really kind of, I don't know, it might fatigue my lower body too much. I should probably skip that and do a seated press. And now you're doing an inferior exercise. Because I think we can present pretty good evidence that the seated press is absolutely an inferior development tool to the standing press. Same thing. Where do you place a deadlift? Upper body or a lower body lift? Right? Well, most people would throw it on a lower day, but it's just as much an upper body lift as it is a lower body lift. That's the point. The most effective exercises train the entire body. The most effective exercises train the entire body. What do we think of as some of the most brutally effective exercises that really put the most muscle and strength and everything on you? A squat, any form of squat, a standing press of any type, a deadlift of any type, a hip hinge of any type, really. Those are all full body movements. They work the upper and the lower body both heavily. Incidentally, they're the best exercises. They're the best exercises for getting big, best exercises for getting strong. They don't work well if you start organizing things in terms of thinking of a split. Now, you could just place them in there and say the standing press is an upper body and the deadlift's a lower body and the power clean's a lower body. You could say that and just be done with it. But it's the mindset behind it. Because you have to find a place to put these exercises, don't you? And for me, I just don't like the idea of that because I don't think of the body in that manner. I don't think of it as upper and lower body. I don't think of it as chest and arms. I think of it as building, maximizing muscle. And if at the end of the day I have one muscle that probably needs a little more work, I might throw in an exercise that's a less effective overall exercise, but that hammers that area a little harder. Like my cheek curls, right? Do some cheek curls. But that can throw into the pull day because it's more of a pull than it is a push, I guess. But that's what you have to do. And to me, that fits into my training philosophy better. I think about movement patterns, not body parts. So therefore, for me, organizing my training into movement patterns, and that can include in the past, sometimes me having an entire day dedicated to one exercise, a big exercise, right? Movement pattern split. You're training movement patterns, not body parts. Body parts just grow as a result of it. And if you're strong at all the movement patterns and you're putting in maximum workload at all the big movement patterns, you're going to maximize hypertrophy anyways. Now, you can still end up with some imbalances, but those can be corrected. You're still stimulating overall the best total results if you're focusing on maximizing all your movement patterns with as much workload as they can handle, or occasionally having to prioritize one. But I just like the idea, for me, of organizing it into a movement pattern setup. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. That's just the way that my mind thinks about training. I'm not really oriented towards, hey, I'm trying to make this one muscle grow. I'm trying to make everything grow. I'm trying to make everything get stronger, everything get bigger. Not this specific muscle or this half of my body. And so therefore, I tend to want to organize any sort of split that I do around movement patterns. And I think that's really common among athletes. There's a lot of other people out there who are athletes and coaches of athletes who think in those terms also. But that's the reason. It's purely personal preference. That's it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.